As long as I've been a reader, I've also considered myself to be a massive book collector. As you can see from the shelves behind me, there's nothing I love more than having all of my favorite books on display to see every day. It just brings me so much joy. But with the books that I do love and hold dearly to my heart, there's definitely a lot of books on my shelf that I still haven't given any love to and I have not read. And it's kind of crazy because I look at my shelves and I'm like, there's books on here that I've owned for years, decades, and they've not been read. And it makes me sad because every day I'll go and I open my Kindle and I'll read something new on there and I neglect the books that I already own. So for 2026, I decided that I needed to make it a goal to read through some of my physical TBR books. And I wanted to do it in a fun way where it didn't feel like I was forcing myself to read books that I didn't feel like reading. So I decided to put together a little challenge for myself. And I'm hoping that you guys will also join in on the challenge in reading your physical TBR books. I've basically given myself 5 prompts, okay? And for each prompt, I'm picking a book off of my shelf and I'm going to read it. Then, once I read them all, I'm going to share my reviews with you, my thoughts. I might do it like reading vlog style, so if that's something you guys want to see, let me know. But I'm going to get back to you once I read all of them, and then I'm going to come back with more prompts. And we're going to keep doing this throughout the year to inspire ourselves to read books that we already own. And I think it's going to go over great. You guys can totally follow along, listen to the prompts, and I'll also have them written down below. And then you can look at your shelf and you can pick books and we can do this together. So I think it'll be really fun. My first prompt is to read a book that I've had on my shelves for over 10 years. And now that might not be applicable to all of you. Some of you guys maybe haven't been collecting books as long, so you can totally adjust it to be a more realistic goal for you. For this prompt, I picked a romance book that I know I have owned for years, and I've read other books by this author, and this is probably her most famous book. And for some reason, I have still not read it. That is 10 Tiny Breaths by K.A. Tucker. This book follows a girl who is in a horrible car accident with her entire family, killing everybody, including her best friend, who I believe was with them. The only survivors are herself and her little sister. And after the whole accident, she just wants to have a fresh start for her and her sister. So they move across the country, and I believe it follows her in her grief journey, but it also does have a romance where there's a boy who lives in the apartment next to where they move in. And so it kind of goes from there, but obviously she's totally not in a headspace to be in a relationship or anything like that. So I think it kind of goes through that and her grief and everything. And I don't know why I haven't read this. Like, this book to me is like OG booktube. I remember everybody reading this back in the day, and I believe it's from 2013. So I've probably owned this since 2013. So that's crazy. I'm very excited to get into this. The plot feels like something I know I would already love, so I can't really see myself hating this. If you've read it, let me know in a comment down below what you think. The next prompt on my list is to read one young adult book. Now, I included this prompt because I have so many YA books on my shelves. I think when I first started my booktube like 10 years ago, I used to talk about a lot of YA and I would buy a lot of YA. I feel like it got to a point where I sort of graduated reading young adult and I just started reading full-fledged adult romance books and never looked back. So sadly, a lot of my YA books have just sat around collecting dust, which I don't like. The one that I chose though, this is actually one that I bought maybe last year and I was like, I'm gonna read this, everyone talks about it, and then I never did. So I'm picking this, but I'm gonna get into those older YA books that I have, I promise. But first, we're starting with Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. I have seen some rave reviews for this book, so I am very excited to get into it. I believe it follows like 2 childhood best friends who are next door neighbors, and this girl has a crush on a different boy, so she uses her next door neighbor to kind of help her get his attention, but then she ends up falling for the guy that's her neighbor. I just think that sounds like such a cute concept, especially for teens. I just think that could be such a fun, lighthearted romance, so I'm very excited to get into this. This copy is also super cool. I got it from Barnes & Noble. So I'm excited. And I know this is a series, so if I like this, maybe I'll end up getting the rest of the books. The point of the video is to read what I have and not buy more books. But like, if I read all of them, I deserve something. So like, maybe my treat will be buying more books. So excited for this one. Let me know if you've read it. The next prompt that I came up with is to read one nonfiction book. And so my shelves are mostly made up of fiction, or more specifically romance books, but I do have a small stack of nonfiction books that have been sitting there for a while that I've always wanted to read. I just feel like the time never feels right. I never reach for them. So this is me trying to intentionally reach for a nonfiction book. The one that I picked I've had for a few years now. This is called The Case Against Fragrance by Kate Grenville. This is a book that I actually remember asking for Christmas, so I believe my mom bought me this. But I've always been super curious. I heard someone talk about this book and I was so intrigued because I'm someone who is personally extremely sensitive to fragrance. I have to use like all fragrance-free products like my laundry detergent, all my skincare. I think a lot of people live with the impression that a natural smelling fragrance might be made from something natural, like you have a perfume that smells like flowers, why wouldn't it be made of actual flowers? But a lot of times perfumes are made of these synthetic chemicals that are not at all regulated, and they can be disruptors to our bodies and to other people. So I'm just really curious about it. It's something that I've always wanted to read up on, and so this is a book that I think will answer a lot of the questions that I've always had about fragrance. So super random. I would love to hear what nonfiction book you guys are gonna read, because this is just the most random niche topic ever. But that's why I wanted to include a nonfiction book in this challenge. I feel like it just puts me out of my reading comfort zone, and we can also read about all different things. Like me reading about fragrance, you guys could be reading about like elephants or something, like I don't know. So let me know what nonfiction book you're gonna read if you're doing the challenge, because we're doing this together. For the next book, I similarly wanted to challenge myself to read a book outside of just the romance genre. So I wanted to read something that was either a general fiction book or like a thriller. So for this, I did kind of choose a book that still includes romance, but the main aspect is thriller. So this is All the Little Raindrops by Mia Sheridan. And I know Mia Sheridan because she does write romance books. But this definitely has a more in-depth plot than just romance, so that's why I allowed myself to pick it. So this book follows two college seniors who end up getting kidnapped together, and they don't really know each other, but they do share this tragic past that kind of links them together for this odd reason, and they need to try to escape together. This tragedy that they share in their lives should actually make them enemies for each other, but obviously being put in this situation, they do sort of need to work together. I guess the book then picks up years later where the male becomes a private investigator and he wants to look further into what happened to them. So they kind of reconnect to try and solve the case. So I do think that that is going to develop into a romance, but I picked it because I'm mostly interested in the whole kidnapping, tragic past, what's going on vibe. The book kind of reminds me of some Jennifer Hartman books that I've read, who I love, so I feel like this is a good pick for me. So in an attempt to just kind of slowly ease away from reading only romance, I feel like this will be a good middle ground pick. So let me know if you've read this. I'm very excited about it. Okay, and for the last book of my TBR challenge, I'm challenging myself to read a popular book that I still have not gotten to. And so this is a book that I think came out last year, and I was super excited about it. I heard so many people talking about it, but I just never ended up reading it. And that is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. This book follows a guy who is a radio host who gives love advice on air, but in his own personal life, he's completely given up on love. He doesn't even think it's real anymore, so he kind of has to fake it till he makes it, until this girl calls in asking for advice for her mother. And I believe the fans of the show just really get a kick out of their banter, and she starts to call in more, and they kind of develop this relationship over the radio. So I don't know, that just sounds so interesting. It says on the back, a hopeless romantic meets a demoralized radio host in this cozy, Sleepless in Seattle inspired love story. And if you know something about me, it's that I love Sleepless in Seattle. So I just could see myself totally falling for this book. And I know this author also has another book coming out this year. I do not remember if it's tied to this book or it's completely different, but I definitely want to read this so I can then read that one. So yeah, that's First Time Caller. Super excited to get into this one. Definitely let me know if you've already read it and what your thoughts were. But that is the final book in my 5-book TBR challenge. Definitely follow along with me if you're wanting to read more of your own physical TBR. I know it can feel like kind of a headache, especially when there's so many new books that are super exciting and shiny and you want to read those. But I feel like there's so many books that we've bought and we've bought them for a reason. So let's read them. I'm gonna read these ones. If you do want me to do a reading vlog where I show you guys my live thoughts on all of these, let me know. If not, we can maybe just do a check-in. And then I'm going to come up with more prompts. We're going to make this into like a year-long series. So we're starting with 5 books. We'll give you some time to read them. I'm going to read mine, and then we'll do another video. So I really hope you guys are going to join me on this journey of reading my physical TBR books. Again, I will have all of the prompts written out down below so you can look at them, pick your books off your shelf, and then leave me a comment down below telling me what books you pick. I really want to see what you guys are reading, and hopefully I can give you guys some encouragement. And if I've read books that you have, I'll tell you if they're amazing or what I think. So yeah, super excited. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I will see you guys very, very soon in the next one. Bye.